Thank you everyone for joining us. Ready, set, data. I'm Anthony Fortner, data engineer, and with me, bated breath, wait for it. We have Lee Markum, database administrator.
Hello.
I think I need to point this way, actually, don't I? No, this way. This way.
That way.
I'll never figure it out. I've given up. Okay, so this is Ready, Set, Data. We talk about various tech topics. Sometimes we talk about things completely unrelated to tech. I am known for getting off the rails, and they keep inviting me back. So I'm happy to be here. So what I wanted to do today, and Lee here has been a good sport, is let me just ask him some questions. So what I'm going to do is hit you up with some. They're going to be kind of interviewee type questions, just to see what happens and where it goes. Okay?
Sure.
Cool. I appreciate that you're a good sport. Let me take care of this real quick.
By the way, this wasn't rehearsed. I have no idea what he's going to ask me.
Which is why this is fun. Maybe just for me, but it's fun. I got to decide how I want what direction I'm gonna look. Okay. So the first one, I'm hoping. I'm sorry, we're still friends. I'm hoping this is a curveball, but I want to see what happens. Okay.
Okay, sure.
Have you heard of the fizz buzz problem?
The fizz buzz problem.
I swear I'm not making this up. The fizz buzz problem.
No, but this does make me think of something else. That's because you said fizz. It makes me think of fizz lock in SQL Server, and I did learn about that many years ago. The fizz buzz problem. I have no idea what you're talking about. Never heard of it.
All right. So I would like you. No, let me get in character. I'm your boss. Knock, knock, knock. Hey, Ali, I need something pretty quickly here. I wasn't sure if you can get this done to save the day. Millions of dollars on the line. I need you to write me a program. I guess in this case, let's say SQL, that prints the numbers from 1 to 100.
Yeah, I'm printing 1 to 100.
Yeah, 1 to 100. Awesome. But for every multiple of 3, I want the word fizz with it. So 1, 2, 3 fizz. 4, 5, 6 fizz. Okay?
Are we still friends now?
Did I already ruin this?
You want me to have the word fizz after every third number, okay?
Yeah, every multiple of 3, yes. Now, we're almost done. Like I said, super simple quest. 2 minutes, right? You can do this, right? 2 minutes? Okay.
Oh, sure, yeah.
Sure. I am way too in character for this. So every multiple of 5, I want buzz. This is why it's called fizz buzz. Every multiple of 5, it has buzz. So 1, 2, 3 fizz, 4, 5 buzz. And because I think we're still friends, I'll give you a heads up. That means when you get to 15, it should have fizz and it should have buzz. Fizz buzz.
I looked this up, by the way, really quickly. This is the first thing that comes up is LeetCode. Now, you have to know that I have never visited LeetCode, but I know what it is.
I've never visited LeetCode either. Shh.
Well,
don't tell anybody. This is just between me, you, the 17 people on Twitch. I don't know how many people on LinkedIn because I'm still blind to that. We got to solve that problem. And all of Twitter. So just a small, loving family of, a small group of people. I've never been to LeetCode. So, no, I had no idea it was LeetCode.
So I don't know if I'm going to be able to solve this problem, but I would tell you what I would do.
Let's talk about it. Let's do it. That's what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to get you to talk.
I mean, the first thing I'm going to do is I would go out and look up FizzBuzz and look at LeetCode examples and other places who have examples of how to solve this problem, and then work on some sort of SQL process to do that, which would involve, if or case, maybe case. I probably would use case, maybe, I don't know. We're going to have to obviously do some math. This is completely out of the realm of problems that I solve.
And I want to add to that. So I asked this question and I warned you that one of the questions would probably be out of left field and I got it out of the way. Right. But, this is normal. you have a particular skill set as a data professional, and there's multiple titles in the data realm for a reason.
Sure.
If you were working with a group of people, well, you do because you're happily employed, I hear. When you're working with a group of people, when this problem comes up as something really important, yes, you one of the first things to do is maybe look it up and see if it's something simple to solve. But the moment you realize this is more of a developer task than a administrator task, you can call in some help, and then they can help you out. Just like when they're having a problem with something that's more in your realm, I don't know, security, so procedure they can't run. They're trying to get to two different machines, and they want to know how to connect the two. Then maybe that's more your realm. But it's okay to call for help. It's okay to say this is not in my skill set. This is why we have teams, right?
Yeah, it is, because no one person knows everything about anything. Even if they're an expert in their field, SQL Server there's the database engine, and even within the database engine, there are slices of expertise even within that. Then there's integration services, there's reporting services, there's analysis services. Each of those four things is a career unto itself.
100%. That's why you have an administrator. That's why you're going to have a developer. I mean, if it's a tiny shop, maybe one person has to wear all those hats. But you're going to have the administrator, you're going to have the developer. If the company gets big enough, and you have your analysts, maybe even data analysts or BI people, data scientists. And then it gets to the point where there's so much data moving around, you need data engineers to specialize in getting data from A to B quickly, efficiently, so that way the DBA doesn't have to do everything, right?
Right. Yeah. For sure.
Cool. Do you want to try the FizzBuzz anymore, or we move on to the next thing?
Yeah, I am not going to solve this problem, especially not live.
Yeah, later he'll figure it out. And if chat or Discord wants to throw the answer at me, I would love it if someone wants to just throw a FizzBuzz SQL thing at me in Discord. Let's do it. Bring it. Okay. Next question. You ready?
Sure.
All right.
42.
Dang it, you knew it. Okay, so the next question. Okay, you ready?
Yes.
So again, I'm gonna be the manager, and you're my senior DBA. You're my senior DBA.
Okay.
Explain to me why I shouldn't switch to MySQL or Oracle. We're a SQL Server heavy shop. I have this app coming, and the developers are like, "Hey, we're gonna do this in MySQL or Oracle. Doesn't matter. Pick one or just make up something."
Okay. The first thing that comes to mind from talking to my MySQL brethren that I know now is MySQL is a less sophisticated, less developed, less mature platform. And so, for example, if you told me for this application that you want to move to MySQL, that it has to be up all the time, we can't be down, MySQL might not be the best platform for that. Here's an argument against my own argument in a post I made. But if we are using T-SQL features that don't port to MySQL, and the application is dependent on those, then we're looking at long rewrites. And I would say, do you really want to spend dev dollars on long rewrites to be able to port it to MySQL or some other platform?
Yeah, because if you've been in the ecosystem for a while, you're using some maybe built-in special features, or you're probably leaning into its strengths, and that's going to be a learning curve.
Yeah, and by the way, I personally believe that you should do that. Whatever platform you're on, I believe that you should lean into that database platform's strengths. Why else are you on it?
Especially if you're paying X $1,000 per core, right?
Yeah, exactly. You're paying tons of money for SQL Server licensing. You might have SQL developers, or at least people who are doing development for SQL, even if they're not strictly SQL developers. It's not what they focus on. You're still paying them big dollars to write SQL for SQL Server. So why not leverage that? You know, if it has a feature that solves a problem, use it. You'd say, well, we might want to go to MySQL someday. If you don't use and lean into the platform's strengths, then you're paying big dollars for the lowest common denominator that you could get somewhere else. That doesn't make sense to me to do that. But anyway, we're off topic now, boss.
Well said. Well said. Well said. No, I'd say we're on topic. This is to get you to talk and share and
Sure.
and have a little fun, right? Cool. No, I like that. I'm picking up what you're putting down. Okay, next, and the answer is now 42. So don't try that on me again. Okay, I'm a developer now.
Okay.
I can see. So I'm a developer. Okay. I made this data model, and you put in the code review that I need a unique key on the table. Why? Why do I need a unique key?
Well,
I mean, I just want to put data in the bucket,
because,
right? And I'm
because
data back
COD
out.
said so.
It's who? I'm sorry?
COD, CODD, COD. You know, the father of the relational database model. He said, yeah,
Oh.
the first normal form is you need a key. So, so you need a key so that you can find a row easily. You need something that identifies a single row. Now, you said unique key. I immediately went to one kind of unique key, which is the primary key. That is not the only kind of unique key. You can have a unique non-clustered key or unique non-clustered index, but you can only have one primary key, which uniquely identifies all rows. Without the primary key, SQL Server is playing 52 card pickup with your data. So I'll do one better than that, developer. If you took 10 packs of cards and you shuffled them all together and you threw them in the air in your office, and then I said to you, find all of the 10 of diamonds, you now have to go through 520 cards one at a time with no real way to have any sort of order to the way you're looking in order to find 52 10 of diamonds. But in SQL Server, if you have a key, the key gives you a quick way to search for your data. So it's not like 52 card pickup. You don't do what's called row identifier lookups, which are little pointers. So in my made up example, if you turned over the first card, and it was the ace of spades. In the SQL Server world, there would be a little slot on that ace of spades card that said, hey, the data you're looking for, it's over there. And you would go there and you would traverse all of that until you found all the records. But with a key, it's much more efficient.
Okay, I'll make changes. Thank you, Mr. Lee.
Oh, also,
cool.
your
like
unique key, unique primary key should be narrow and ever increasing.
What do you mean when you say narrow?
Don't use first name, last name, product name as your primary key, because it'll be really, you got 3 columns and it'll be really wide. Lots of characters to search through. You could use something like an identity property. So you get an ever increasing number that is easily sortable.
So the first row's 1, the next row's 2, the next row's 3.
Yeah. Yeah. If you have something small like that, small columns, then within the data itself, then you can use those small narrow columns as your clustering key, your clustered primary key that's unique.
A natural key.
A natural key. Yes, I was looking for that. I could only come up with surrogate, which is what I initially said with the identity property.
Yeah. For this next project, one of the requirements is this has to be on its own standalone SQL server. So I need, for reasons, I need a new SQL server stood up for this database.
Okay.
What questions do you ask?
Well, I'm going to ask, we're making lots of assumptions here. The first thing I need to know is this a brand new database for a brand new application? Are we moving a database from one SQL server to another SQL server? Those are some initial questions I would ask to get a feel for what we're trying to accomplish. The other thing is, how big is the database? What application is this? Because if I already know about the application, then I can get a sense of how busy it's going to be, which tells me how many cores I might need, how much RAM I might need, that sort of thing.
You need to know whether or not it's a new database or not. You need to know details about size and everything else. Do you think there's anything else that might be pertinent?
Anything else that might be pertinent? Do I get to design this, or do I have to live with someone else's design? I'm kidding. Do we need?
Well, I mean, that's still kind of pertinent. It depends on where you work, I guess.
So what kind of features are we planning on using in the database for the application? Do we have any maintenance windows? And the reason this is important up front is because if you tell me there are no maintenance windows, but you also want me to do things like be able to make indexes without causing outages or blocking scenarios or that sort of thing where the customer is going to complain, then I'm going to say, well, we need an enterprise edition then, so that we can do online index creation, for example.
Yeah.
Now, you wouldn't choose. Hopefully, you wouldn't choose. We wouldn't choose enterprise edition for that specific and only feature. We would leverage other things, but the maintenance window question comes into mind because of that. Yeah.
Availability concerns, probably.
Yeah,
Said can have downtime. Is also, some people's applications needs incredibly high uptime. You'll want to know that ahead of time.
Yes, and if you needed that, then probably a standalone instance isn't the way you want to go. So if you as a boss said to me, I need a single SQL Server instance and it can never go down, I would be like, well, that compound sentence doesn't work. If it can't never go down, then you need to be considering something like failover clustering or availability groups. Depends on what kind of protection you're wanting. If you want the instance to be up all the time, if you're trying to do protection for the instance, then you need a failover cluster. If you are looking to protect one or more databases as a collection, and those databases can never not be available, then that's availability groups.
Because when one of them goes down, a secondary will take over, right? And so the end user doesn't feel like they might not even notice that anything happened.
That's correct, especially if developers have built-in retry logic in the application. So during a failover, the application is going to get hey, this database isn't available for 10 or 15 seconds.
Yeah.
If you have some retry logic in there, then the app it'll keep retrying for X. We're going to say 20 seconds. I'm making something up. And then that gives you time for the failover to be successful. And then the query or sets of queries work. The customer might notice some slowness. Hey, why isn't this page coming back right away? And then they'll be like, oh, here it is. And then they go on.
Yeah, that brings up a good point that I like. We're stepping slightly away from DBA and SQL Server now, but that's why it's a team game, because depending on how you architect things, if they did come to you and say, people can never notice that there's something wrong. We want super uptime. That's not really just a SQL Server problem. If you have services in between the user and SQL Server, that's a team game, right? SQL Server's like, I'm gonna be up 999. I'm gonna have 6 nines, but sometimes I'm gonna be down. Sometimes the network's gonna be down. Like you said, the mid-tier in theory could do the retries and serve up data while it's retrying, so the front end just doesn't notice a problem, or a myriad of other options. That's why this is a team sport, right?
Deadlocks, for example, which can be solved by a DBA sometimes with things like indexing and that sort of thing. But a lot of times deadlocks are solved by developers through the way the pattern, the sequence, that's the word I'm looking for, the sequence in which they build the queries to make sure that a sequence doesn't create a scenario where a deadlock can occur. And then when it does, you have retry logic. So just because you hit a deadlock doesn't mean the query dies. Ideally, the application will try it again. And usually if it does that, by the time it tries again, then the resources are no longer are locked up.
Yeah, I like how you phrased that. You brought this up, but it's phrased in my head now. DBA problems that the developer can solve. That feels like a blog post or another show. Like, that's a topic. It's a DBA problem, but you need the developer to solve it, right? And it's a lot more than I think we talk about. I think a lot of the DBA videos and talks and sessions are very like, you are going to put your butt in your chair, connect to your SQL Server, and fix a thing, because that's something you can do. And the dev ones are the same way, right? The dev ones are not usually how to talk to your DBA. I've seen a few of those in the care and feeding of your DBA, but bring donuts, that kind of thing. But yeah, I think that'd be actually a good topic. Let's mark that down somewhere. Oh, okay, I'm gonna go ahead and ask this one. So yeah, by the way, for people listening, I'm totally ripping these questions off of Brent Ozar's site. When and where does the local user group meet?
When and where does the local users group meet?
Mm-hmm.
That is an interesting question designed to find out how connected someone is or invested they are in their own learning and education. So, I mean, St. Louis does have its own user group meeting. Because you and I were running one at one point, I haven't gone to the St. Louis one in a while. And now the local user group might not even matter as much because of pandemics, because a lot of groups went virtual. And so I can still connect to other groups and attend virtual user group meetings, hang out with knowledgeable, cool people, and learn stuff and ask questions.
Cool. Yeah. If you want to go in person, you still can nowadays.
Yeah.
But thanks to 2020, so there's a few good things that came out of 2020. There's I think more vibrant, remote meetup now. That's more normal. That's more okay. And for people who can't just go out and drive downtown, and a lot of times meetups, the ones that are heavily advertised are like feel very extrovert.
They can,
meaning like, hey, let's have drinks at this place. I don't know you yet.
Yeah.
It's before there. But anyway, yeah. That and I agree. That's what this question's for, right? The question's to see how you connected you are, to see, have you even thought about that? Some people might be completely caught off guard, and you can kind of tell. Someone will say, even if they don't usually go, they've gone once. Yeah, I've been to one. There's one it happens over here. So and so runs it. It might be kind of a local MVP that you'll see running those kind of things. Yeah, great, cool.
All right. This question actually reminded me of something else. This actually sparked a debate on Twitter. Some weeks ago, I saw
something started a debate on Twitter.
I know, right? It's hard to imagine.
They're listening.
Or people were talking about, is it imaginable for someone to say have 10 years of, they have 10 years of experience on their resume in the field, it's like SQL Server, because that's what we're talking about, but they don't know about meetups, SQL Server meetups, or they don't know anything about this organization called PASS that used to exist, but is now transitioned to something else. Like, is that a red flag? And boy, was it a interesting discussion on Twitter. There were some who were like, "Oh, it's a total red flag," and others were, "I don't really think it matters." And there were some who were in between. But it was an interesting topic to see hashed out.
That's a good topic. I've used the term, and I'm stealing this from one of my favorite podcasts, Coda Radio. But they always say they call these people. It's more of a developer focus, but I think it applies. They call them dark matter developers. So because in development community, I think the same kind of bias is a bunch of people who think, well, if you're really a professional, you use a framework that's named after a coffee. You go to the meetups, you meet people, and you do all that, right? It's the same thing. Every industry probably has something similar like that, right?
Yeah.
But honestly, if you really think about it, I'm making up a number. 72% of all statistics are made up on the spot. 90% of the developers out there aren't going to these meetups. Maybe it's true for DBAs too, right? Most of them aren't going, or else these places will be blowing up full of people. They're just getting up in the morning, having their breakfast, jump off the kids at school, going to work, clocking in, or they're remote nowadays, doing their job, coming home and doing whatever it is with the rest of the evening that they love. And they're not constantly trying a new framework or the new version of SQL Server. They're not constantly going to meetups and doing all that. These people exist and they are just doing their job, and that's okay. But the people who are not those people, I feel like a good percentage of them want to shame those who are. If you don't go to a meetup, it's okay.
Yeah.
There's other ways to advance your career. And you know what? Just between me and you, Lee, and who knows how many other people are watching on LinkedIn. Oh, this is even worse on LinkedIn. That's okay if you're not like trying to become the next MVP. It's okay if you're not trying to expand greatly. Clock in, do your job, love your job, get out.
Yeah. I mean, we talked about this topic before. I mean, you don't know what's going on in people's lives. At one point, maybe they wanted to be an MVP, and now they have to throttle that back because they love their family, they have responsibilities there, they have people to take care of, or whatever. You don't know.
You don't know.
And I've seen this a lot on Twitter over the last few years. And I think we went through Mental Health Awareness Month, either last month or is it this month? Anyway, I mean, there was a lot of discussion about you really need to think about, what's going on in someone else's life before you judge them, essentially, and say, oh, well, you should be doing this or whatever.
Or don't judge them and just realize that everyone probably does have something going on in their life.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I think I've made up a rule a long time ago. I use it for a lot of things, including jobs. It used to be every job has the same amount of problems. We'll say you pick a job that has the problem stored where you want. Like maybe the schedule's bad, but you're okay with that because it does this. I think I think everybody. I think it's true for people too. Everybody has a certain amount of problems, and it may be just in different places. They might show up and look like everything's put together fine in their life, but when they go home, it's a wreck. Or they have a medical condition they don't talk about, or they have a loved one that's suffering with something, a mental health issue, a medical condition, or loved ones, or they have some kind of strife. You just don't know. That's because you can't tell doesn't mean it's not there. So keeping that in mind.
Absolutely.
Wow, we really made a bunch of left turns. I love it. Cool.
So we have time for like one or two more questions, and then we can wrap up.
Oh, okay, cool. We'll pull something out real quick. In that case, how do you learn new things, Mr. Markum? You hold a book up to your forehead.
Osmosis. No.
Osmosis.
Back in my day, movies were books. To quote my favorite movie, The Princess Bride. So I've gone through an evolution. That's the whole reason. That's part of where I was going with the picking up the book thing. Over here, I do have a bookcase that's about half full of books. I have read most of those tech books. I have read most of them. So that's how I got started initially. I would buy big books and read them. Now I evolved into using things like Pluralsight for a while, and I would pay for Pluralsight however X dollars a month and watch people on there like Paul Randall and other folks. I read blog posts. I follow the big names in the industry that I care about, which is SQL Server. So, I'm reading things from SQLskills.com and Little Kendra and .com and Renozar.com and other places. And so that's a constant thing. Love Aaron Bertrand, and he does a lot of different things. Glenn Berry, all of those kinds of folks. But still, I use books to help me at times to get started on a particular topic. The one I picked up happened to be PowerShell, but yeah.
I happen to have a book habit too, so I'm with you. I don't know. I also like videos, but I like certain types. I like it when people work through stuff myself, but I'm with you there. There's a transition. I started out almost entirely books, but like we said, that might have been the last show, but we said very recently, once upon a time, you couldn't just go to YouTube, right? Believe it or not, there was a time before YouTube. There wasn't just videos everywhere, especially on your phone. Now I can drop off the kids somewhere, and then I'll be stuck in my car for 45 minutes, and now it's not a big deal because I'm finally studying. I have that video series I want to finish, right?
Yeah.
I'm definitely not watching cat videos. Yeah, so it's a different world. Question was, what third-party database tools are your favorites? And if you're okay saying which one's your favorite, go for it. But what third-party database tools are your favorites?
Yeah, so the first thing that come to mind are things that format T-SQL. And I really wish I could remember the name because I did find a free one that I'm using at work now that I intend to put on my machine here, my personal machine that I'm streaming from. But I love T-SQL formatters.
I know somebody who needs to know.
Okay, yes. Once I have that information, I can remember it, I will share. Redgate has some cool tools that do formatting and other things. At one point, Apex SQL, which has been purchased by someone, and I don't remember who, had a T-SQL formatter that you and I used at a place. Does this extend to monitoring? Like what?
Yeah.
How? Okay.
Whatever you feel like is something you like that helps you with your job in any way.
I use SQL Sentry from SolarWinds. I've also used SolarWinds Database Performance Analyzer, which pairs really nicely with SolarWinds Server and Application Monitor. Those two things feed information, so you can get an integrated look. Those are platforms I've used before and really like.
Yeah.
There certainly are other tools. Idera has SQL Diagnostic Manager. You can do free things. Oh, I can't believe I didn't think about this. So SP Who is Active.
Yeah.
From Atom Mechanics. So it's a fabulous tool for live troubleshooting. If you can't afford any of those third-party paid tools I just mentioned, you can create your own by logging the output of SP Who is Active to a table. And you can get a sense of what is going on your SQL Server through that logged information. So that's really cool. Open source First Responder Kit has a bunch of stuff. I would encourage you to look at the DBA tools .io. That has, if you want to learn, I
would have been sad if you didn't bring that up.
If you want to learn how to automate SQL Server and you're a scripting person, let's say you're a system administrator and you've been voluntold that you're now taking care of SQL Server, after you're done shaking in your boots because you don't know anything about SQL Server, you should go look at dbatools.io and learn or extend your knowledge of PowerShell, you should also, if you're in that case, come visit my blog. Hint, hint. Because I can give you good places to start.
What's the DBA's most important job? What's the most important aspect of DBA's job? Or the first thing you worry about?
Backups, and can you use the backups to restore?
Okay. Any third-party tool that you happen to be a fan of that you use with that?
PowerShell. I personally don't care for third-party tools for that.
Oh, okay.
Because here's been my experience. And this is only my experience. It doesn't mean that other people haven't had better experiences. But my experience has been that I will drop into places that have never had a DBA, and the system administrators want an easy way to back up and restore SQL Server. And there are lots of tools that say that they will do that, and they will to varying degrees. However, I have seen situations where these tools, at least in the way they've been configured, do not offer the protection that's on the box, so to speak. Where you go to use backups that a third-party utility has made, and it's not actually a backup in the way that SQL Server would back something up. It's a file level backup. And so you're really just detaching the database that's there that you don't want anymore because there's something wrong with it. Maybe someone, dropped a table or whatever.
Yeah.
And you're attaching files from this backup. Well, that's not really a backup and restore scenario, because you don't have point in time restores. The only point in time you can restore to is the last time this utility took a file backup. That's not incredibly useful. So that's been my experience. It doesn't mean that those other tools can't be configured for point in time restore. A lot of them can. It's just they weren't. And so when you go to use them, you're like, this isn't quite what I thought I was getting. So I prefer native backups. You can automate backups with PowerShell. You can automate restores with PowerShell, but at least you're in control of that scenario and you know what you're getting.
Gotcha. So I'm going to tell you why I asked that question.
Sure.
And I want to get your opinion on it. So I thought, it shows that I can't always ask any questions to get you where I think you're going to go. I thought you would mention Ala Holmgren's scripts.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
So are you still a fan of those?
Yes, I do. I do like the Ola Holmgren scripts. I still use them. I've used them for years. And that's also a third-party utility.
Yeah, they're just so normal. You don't even think about them as a third-party utility. So
yeah, I don't. It's just like this is just part of SQL Server in my head. It's not really, but yeah.
It's a given, right?
Yeah. Yeah, Microsoft should just bundle it. When you install SQL Server, you just get Ola Holmgren with it.
Yeah. All right, I got one more question for you, and then we'll let you get some rest. What still excites you about SQL Server?
Oh,
this isn't from the site.
I think so. I'm still intrigued about high availability, even though I've been doing it for years, and I've really liked that as a niche subject where I can focus and learn and get good at that. That's a reference back to the last thing we did. So I'm still excited about high availability, and I'm interested in high availability in the cloud. Like, how do you accomplish that? How do you really accomplish that? Again, are you getting everything that's advertised on the box, or are you getting something else? And if you're getting something else, how do you use those cloud technologies to get what you're after? Still more for me to learn. As we talked about last week, I'm been in the cloud for like about 18 months now on a consistent basis. So there's still a lot for me to learn. I have learned some things the hard way about high availability in the cloud. So that's still something I'm really interested in. And of course, I'm interested in extending my PowerShell knowledge so that I can manage SQL Server in a more automated way that's faster, at least for me, than typing out a bunch of T-SQL or a GUI.
Automated things are arguably always faster than you because they can be running while you're asleep. They can be running while you're watching a football game, if you're into that kind of thing.
That's right.
So yeah, they can be happening in the background. All those log backups are being taken by something, a job, right? So not you by hand. Awesome. All right. Well, thanks everybody for joining us. We really appreciate all of you who joined live. That doesn't mean we don't love you two people in the future, looking back at us in the past.
Yeah.
So thanks for joining us here, Ready Set Data. Signing out. I'm Anthony Fortner.
I'm Lee Markum. Thanks for being here.
Good night, everybody.
Bye.